All right, I know it's been a few days, and to be honest with you, I'm actually uploading this video as a test to see if the account's still working because supposedly a lot of the smaller channels like this one were going to be eliminated on the 10th, which was yesterday. But this is a sneak peek for those of you that watch this channel for an article that I wrote, which hopefully will be published elsewhere the next couple of days, and if it does, I will probably do a second video on it. I'll just go over the broader idea. So Bernie Sanders is currently polling in second place in two of the early states, Iowa and New Hampshire, and I think that as of right now, the media, the legacy media especially, is downplaying his chances of winning the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination because they are continuously and consistently trying to chase after that magic candidate that embodies all of the Obama characteristics. Just the inspirational, shallow, emotional qualities that Barack Obama was able to evoke both in 2008 and 2012. And that person hasn't emerged yet. It just isn't working. Kamala Harris has dropped out. Kamala Harris, I should say. I actually miss having a chance to say that over and over again. So she's gone, and Beto is gone. That was an equally funny exit. And some of the other also-rans have dropped out. You know, Jay Inslee and Bill de Blasio. So the Democrats are in a bit of a pickle because they don't really want Bernie to be the nominee. Well, they might have soon a little bit of ammunition for their fight against Bernie, and it comes in the form of something that's not even an American issue, which is the UK general election. Now, I want to be clear that I am not making a prediction, and I'm not telling people how to vote. I personally would vote for the Brexit Party over there simply because I think that Nigel Farage is the person with the consistency and drive to deliver Brexit. But whoever you are and whoever you'd probably vote for, it's none of my business. And I just hope that things turn out better over there. I don't think I'd ever support someone like Jeremy Corbyn, but, I've read into him a lot. And, I just happen to disagree with him on everything. So the thing is that Corbyn is supposedly heading towards a very, very embarrassing defeat, according to most polling projections right now. Okay? He's actually going and polling at 33% according to the Britain Elects poll tracker, and that would probably put Labour on track to lose possibly 30 to 40 seats in the UK House of Commons, which would be on Thursday night. So technically that's actually tomorrow. We're very, very... This is what's really astonishing, that the news here in the US is ignoring things that are pretty important on the whole. Now, they're not ignoring them entirely, but if you were to turn on CNN, they're not really covering the Jersey City shooting. Sorry, that almost came out wrong. They're not really following a lot of these stories that are going on. Things that are happening in Latin America. The Afghan war report apparently came out, which I haven't gotten to read any of this stuff, not the OIG report, any of it. I haven't been able to because I've been writing for the past few days. Not just this story, but a separate story that I might make a different video on. So the truth is that the Labour Party is not in a good position according to the polls, and it's very likely that Corbyn will lose the election and probably deliver Britain into another 5 years of Tory government, which would be disastrous for the Labour Party and probably lead them to some sort of internal issue where the far left, which is his faction, and John McDonnell's faction will be fighting with the remainder of the party, who are holdovers from the Blair and Gordon Brown era. So that's what's happening with them. Now, what's the repercussion over here? The thing is that a lot of people have hoped that Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn would have the chance to be, I guess, bosom buddies, the same way as in the 80s, the conservative icons of, Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were for about 8 years. They had a pretty good relationship, a couple of flare-ups. The Falkland Islands, I think, was a bit of a conflict for them. There was also the Grenada incident. The British did not like it that the United States invaded Grenada. That's something that people don't know about that incident. But on the whole, the British and American governments under Reagan and Thatcher had a very close relationship due to their shared animosity towards socialism. Thatcher was directly challenging the unions and many of their radical members when she was prime minister, and Reagan was certainly going up against, I guess, not the same degree of extreme economic leftism and socialism, but yeah, definitely Jimmy Carter was probably the farthest left president since FDR, and Walter Mondale also, and I go into that a bit. Walter Mondale was pretty far to the left, a very hardcore union, pro-choice Democrat. So both Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were contending with pretty far left opponents at the time. And ultimately, the defeat of those left-wing opponents led to what is now the era of neoliberalism, which some people say is coming to an end. Those were the Clintons and the Blairs. Now, if Corbyn loses this week, what does that mean for Bernie Sanders? Especially if he loses in historical fashion, Democrats will start to use this. And I'm not saying this because I'm a big Bernie doubter, which I am. I hate Bernie Sanders. But I'm saying this is really something that could become a subject of ridicule for Bernie Sanders. You'll get some of these people, the Joanne Reids, Don Lemon, people who are very close to the trough. People like Joe Scarborough, who himself isn't even he's I guess a reluctant liberal. He's a former Republican. Those people will start to say, hey, they'll start saying on their broadcast, look, Corbyn ruined the Labor Party. He Corbynized it, and it's basically been relegated to a permanent opposition party. So their politics are very radical and pure, but they don't seem to get any results because they can never win an election. So therefore, what's the point of this purity? What's the point of having radical, bold changes on your platform if they're so unpopular that you're not going to get elected? And unfortunately, for the Democrats and for the Bernie people, but maybe fortunate for the rest of us who won't have to necessarily deal with those ridiculous policies, they're right. People like Joanne Reid and these neoliberals, people like the Bloombergs and things like that, yes, they're awful people, but on this they're not wrong. The fact is that the majority of Americans, and I'm talking about just in terms of electability, the majority of Americans will break with Bernie Sanders in the same fashion as a lot of British people are breaking with Jeremy Corbyn. And one of the things that I started watching was this video, which was by The Guardian, which is by no means a Tory newspaper, concerning Labour voters in Northern England, which was traditionally the Labour Red Wall. And they were adamant. Most of the people now look, they did find some people that will still vote for Corbyn, and obviously, I think Corbyn is going to be able to preserve some of the seats over there. But there were a lot of people who said either they're not going to vote or that they're going to vote for the Tories or they might vote for the Brexit Party or they might not vote at all because they can't stand this vacillation over Brexit. And it's the same thing. I won't go into it in depth, but the polling in the U.S. dovetails with what happened in Britain. You have a lot of these people who were conservative Remain voters in 2016 who, despite the fact that Corbyn has committed to a new people's vote, which is what the Remainers want, they say, well, they're still going to vote for the Tories or they're still going to vote for Boris Johnson to remain the prime minister. By contrast, if you look at a lot of these voters who are Leave voters who voted for Labour in 2017, the majority of them, 54%, are defecting from Labour to the Conservatives. So while Boris Johnson has been able to keep Tory voters, for the most part, according to this poll by Lord Ashcroft Agency, they've been able to keep those Tory voters. The Labour Party has been hemorrhaging Leave Labour voters, people who are left-wing Brexiteers, anti-EU voters. They're losing them. This is something that Steve Turley, if you watch his channel, he talks a lot about. And this isn't really hard inside stuff. It's just things that they're published in the media, and some people just happen to ignore them. You know, it's not harped upon, but you can find it pretty easily. There's a story in Politico.eu that talks about it. And the other problem is that Corbyn has been ignoring the issue of the EU and Brexit in favor. All he's been doing is he's been saying that he's going to negotiate a new deal, he's going to put it up for a vote, and he'll be neutral on it, which is a very interesting position. How can you have a position on a topic that you're neutral about? If you're neutral, by definition, you can't have a position on it, which is a very it's a very bad statement from a politician that you're neutral on the most important issue facing Britain today. That's not exactly a vote of confidence in yourself. But he's talking about other stuff like nationalizing the rail system, the telecom and utilities. He's promised to abide by the parliamentary party's position on renewal and replacement of the Trident nuclear submarine program. That's not popular among the Labour left. And he's actually come out opposing full-term serving of sentences by terrorist convicts, which is especially sensitive right now given the London Bridge stabbing, the new London Bridge stabbing. And then, of course, there's a whole Labour anti-Semitism issue with Rabbi Ephraim Mervis and his predecessor, Jonathan Sachs. Both of them have condemned Labour in the past. I don't think that that's really a big electoral issue. I think the people who are really concerned with that already made up their minds maybe 2 or 3 years ago that they're never going to vote for a Corbyn government. So I don't know if the effect of that is really going to be tangible. It is a little embarrassing for Corbyn, though, in a way. Look, I get it that some people think, oh, this is not a big deal. Most people will continue to vote for Corbyn. When he has to keep wasting his time talking about that issue, in his mind, it's wasting his time. Of course, the media has been talking to him about it because it is an issue for them. So he has less time to talk about the other issues that he finds important, some of the issues that the voters find important, because he's constantly on the defensive because of things that he's said or done in the past that have raised the hackles of people concerned with anti-Semitism. And yet, some of those incidents, I would say, he says things that are derogatory towards Jews. So is that a big election issue? I think that depends who you are. And like I said, I think most of the people who find that important made their mind up a long time ago. It's not going to affect it now. The same issue right now with Bernie, not in terms of the anti-Semitism, but the same issue similar to Brexit is Bernie Sanders flip-flopping on immigration. Back in 2015, there was a very famous interview that he did. I believe it was with Ezra Klein of Vox, where he said that Open Brothers is a Koch brothers proposal, and the liberal media tried to flay him alive over it. But it actually is a very popular statement among people who are from rural areas, people who are anti-immigration. They don't think that corporate America has their back when it comes to immigration, because they see a lot of them are hiring. A lot of these companies are hiring illegal aliens in order to work in some of the more low-wage industries, things like slaughterhouses, fruit picking, issues like that. So, yeah, he's flip-flopped on that. He now essentially supports open borders. And that's the whole issue. Just like there's the polling issue with Brexit when it comes to Corbyn, where a lot of these Leave voters are defecting to the Tories over it, and the Remain voters that are supporters of that voted Conservative are going to stay Conservative. In this election, it's going to be very difficult for me to see a lot of pro-immigration people defecting from Donald Trump, while you at the same time have a lot of these grassroots voters who are anti-immigration. I think they're going to be defecting to Trump. So Sanders is actually not going to earn much help by supporting illegal immigration. I cited 4 different polls that are showing that Americans do not support either illegal immigration or, more specifically, granting health care benefits to illegal aliens here, including one poll, which was from Harvard Harris, that said that 79% of Americans oppose open borders, 68% of women between 18 and 34, which is the most supportive of open borders, but 68% of them oppose it. So in the most supportive demographic, you're still losing at a 2 to 1 margin. Okay, in other demographics, the Hispanics, it's 81%. That's 4 to 1. Black voters, 74%. That's a 3 to 1 margin. And even Democrats, 68%. That's a 2 to 1 margin. So in all of those categories, Bernie Sanders is very vulnerable on immigration, and he can't go far to the right on immigration. Far to the right meaning that he can't moderate his stance, because he's going to alienate the Democratic Party activist base, who are the people that he needs in order to motivate voters to go out and actually vote in November. So he's in a real tough bind. Donald Trump is, of course, clearly anti-immigration. He doesn't have that problem to deal with, so he can just exploit it to his advantage, because he has the freedom to say whatever he wants, and Bernie doesn't. So that's about it. I'd like you to read the article if you can. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe to me on BitChute. You can see my BitChute channel address right here, hovering right here, because this channel could still be eliminated. You can also find me on the blog link that I'll put in the chat or in the comments, and on Minds.com. That's at Chef Leopard. Also at Chef Leopard on BitChute, and on Subscribestar if you want to donate. Also Chef Leopard, and on Gab at Starscream85. And I'll talk to you later.